Hey there, old school gamers. It's me again, John Clement, the grumpy old GM, and I'm here to talk to you today about NPCs. So today's topic was suggested by one of our wonderful Discord community members, Ronzilla0. He is often on Discord in the mornings in our server and just greets people and says hello. So say hi to Ron and ask him about his game. And I don't mean the game he's running, I mean the game he's designing. So he is designing a really cool game, something it's special. It is not just another knockoff version of D&D. Ron's got something cool and unique going on. So absolutely ask him about that on our Discord server. Just shout out to Ronzilla0. But the other day, Ron and I were talking about NPCs. And, well, this is actually part of a bigger topic. He was asking about, we were discussing as DMs, I think we're about the same age, about what happens when player characters run off the map, or being able to DM off the cuff, or being able to spontaneously generate stories, stuff like that. So in my mind, I kind of think of that as two parts, and the first part is NPCs. So here we go, NPCs. So if you imagine a planet like your homebrew D&D world, or Toril, the Forgotten Realms planet, or Kryn, the Dragonlance planet, or the Mystara planet, or Athos, the Dark Sun planet, or, whatever. I don't think the Feywild's a planet, or the Shadowfell's a planet, but I mean, if we think about a world, and you think about the billions of people waking up every morning, just opening their eyes, starting their day, whether they're commoners or whether they have an adventuring class, whether they live in a city or whether they live far away from the city, whether they're a human or an orc or a goblin or a troll or an elf or a dwarf or dragonborn, whoever they are, they're people. NPCs don't know that they're NPCs. So if you think about it, your player characters are just, depending on how big your table is, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, or maybe sometimes when I was in college, 20. But I don't recommend that. Those were some crazy college days. People in this world, or universe, multiverse, whatever you run, but around them are the NPCs. And so if we're going to make as GMs, if we're going to make those NPCs feel like real people, if we're going to make it feel like your player character could go out into the streets of Waterdeep and talk to a random person and make it seem like a real person, this is how we do it. Okay, well, first of all, we don't have to do it with everybody, okay? And I'll get to that here in a minute. But what if there's somebody you didn't think you'd need to do it to? How do you flesh them out? Well, we base our NPCs on real people, our real relationships, things we've observed in real life. I'm going to give you 3 examples, and then I'll kind of tie together the theory again at the end. All right, and then of course we'll take questions and comments and stuff like that. But here's like 3 examples. Now the first one I like because it's an experience that we all relate to. Okay, we all go to the store pretty much, unless you don't leave your house for whatever reason. But most of us go to the store. And when you see the checkout person, we pick up on cues about the checkout person. Like, for example, the checkout person could be at the end of their shift. Ooh, or maybe they're past the end of their shift. Maybe they were supposed to go home, and it was just mandatory that they stayed because the store is understaffed or something. And so their feet hurt. Their head hurts. They've been dealing with rude people all day. And if you think about that checkout person compared to a checkout person at the beginning of their shift, and they're all perky, and maybe they're young because they're a student and this is their part-time job, so they haven't been ground down like maybe an older checkout person has by life. But so the younger part-time student checkout person, they're going to have a much different, if you talk to them, and I'm talking real life so far, because we're going to translate real life into the game, into your GMing or DMing. But that younger person is going to have a little more bounce to them, probably. If you talk to them, they might even joke with you a little bit. Whereas the somebody at the end of their shift, and maybe they're not a part-time checkout person, maybe it's their full-time job and their feet hurt, kind of went through that already, but they're probably not going to be as responsive. But these, if you try to interact with them, this is an example of like real people. And if you, that's why our picture today for the video is a shopkeeper. So because shopkeepers are NPCs that people deal with in role-playing games. So if you think about real people and how real people really are in real life, and you have your NPCs act like real people, just real people that might be able to throw lightning from their hands, or, real people that might be buff enough in strength to wear plate mail and wield battle axes, or, real people who might be a troll. But if you, or Goliath, but still, if you give them real motivations, if you make them like real people, they're going to come off like real people. They'll be real people. They'll feed into your stories like real people would. So I promised 3 examples. So here's a couple other examples. I like the checkout person example because we can all relate to that. We've all been to the store. Maybe sometimes we've been that checkout person. Not that, I'm referring to any of my college part-time jobs or anything. But, okay, so now let's say that your character is maybe in an inn, and they're trying to find a romantic partner, either long-term or short-term. We're not going to get into that. No judging. But let's say your player character in a role-playing game is in a libacious situation with alcohol being served, a party or an inn or something, and they're looking to find someone. Well, if we think about real life. In real life, if you are looking for a romantic partner, there are people who are also looking, and then there are people who are not looking. Okay, there are people who they might have it all together. They might seem to be like I'd be so good with this person. This is like the perfect person. We'd be such a great couple. But I asked them out, and they said no, because that person is like focused on their studies. Like maybe they're totally focused on their studies, they want to get through school, and they have said no to any relationship. Or maybe sometimes somebody just went through a divorce, and they are completely believe that I need to give myself at least a year to heal so that I don't have a rebound or something. But they've got some other kind of reasons in their life why they are just not looking. It has nothing to do with you, but there's people that they're just not on the market. But then there's people that are on the market, and we can get into like the various things that they might be into or not into or whatever. But if you make your NPCs act like real people, instead of just, make a seduction roll or however it works at your table. But if you actually have some kind of interaction, and you make your NPCs like real people, now that really helps. Now the third example is the warlord or gang leader, or somebody who leads people, into combat for whatever reason. Maybe a military captain. So a warlord type leader, gang leader, military commander, something like that. There are people like that who actually care about the people under them, and then there's people like that who just want to get the job done. And they may pretend to care about casualties, or they may go through the motions of saying the stuff they're supposed to say, but really, at the end of the day, they just want to achieve their objective. And then there's people that actually think about the people under their command and stuff. These are 2 very different personalities. And so that's just 2 examples of how an NPC commander, so for instance, I ran a superheroes game once, and the villains were a gang of like superpowered mutants and stuff. And one of the players at that game said that her brother had been in a gang and complimented me that basically I made the gang leader, who was like the primary boss villain, said I'd made the gang leader act like just like some of the gang people that her brother used to run with. And she was like, wow, that's all realistic and everything. It's not that I really ever have known gang people necessarily that haven't run with that crowd, but we've all watched movies, we've all read books, we've all read novels, we've all seen TV shows. Like, you may have never really been associated with police work or cops or anything, but we've all watched cop dramas, we've all seen movies. So if you can it's kind of where if you can take your experiences watching people in real life, or even just watching characters in movies and books and stories and comic books, if you base your NPCs on real people or realistic characters, then they're going to come off real. They're going to come off authentic. Everybody has parents, and it's like even the most hardened, crusty warrior, had a mother, and maybe on their mom's birthday they might want to go to the pub and drink one and sing a song their mom liked or something. Just things that make people more human, and I mean human in their heart. I'm not saying nothing bad against goblins or orcs or dwarves or elves, but humanity, I guess we'll say it that way, humanity. But yeah, so if you base your characters, your NPCs, on real people, the guy who taught me how to game master, and I really am going to work to try to get him on this show, but the guy who taught me how to game master, he actually had NPCs that he based on specific people in his life. So like there was an NPC that was based on an old boss he used to have. There was an NPC that was based on an old girlfriend he used to have. And when you base them on real people, you get awesome results. So those are my thoughts today from Grumpy Old GM. If this is helpful, then we just launched a new Patreon at patreon.com/grumpyoldgms, and you can actually get personal coaching from me or some of the other Grumpy Old GMs that I know and work with. There's different levels. You could be the mildly annoyed GM, you could be the full-on frustrated GM, or you could go for the full level and be the grumpy GM. But either way, you get access to exclusive Patreon-only Discord rooms, discussions, and stuff like that. So, and if you'd like to game with us, come find our Discord. Come find our webpage at grumpyoldgms.com. Tables are filling up, but there's still some seats left. I think every table has at least one seat left. I can think of one table that has one seat left, but I can't think of any that have zero. So check us out, grumpyoldgms.com. In the meantime, I'll see you around the gaming table.